There are going to be some days, well, there are going to be many days where you don't actually have a song in your heart. Sing anyway. Hey everyone, this is D, Movieman, fellow cinephile, popcorn addict, and emerging film critic, coming to you with reliable recaps, reviews, and reactions. And today, I'm coming to you all with my thoughts on the upcoming release, Melodrive. Written and directed by Oscar Wenman-Hyde, and starring Matt Wake, Beatrice Fletcher, and Christine During, among others. Story-wise, the film is centered around Ethan, a young musician who travels to his hometown in the wake of an untimely separation from his wife. But when he suddenly bumps into his high school sweetheart and embarks on a road trip, his already conflicted emotions are thrown even more off balance. So, of course, I am going to start with my pros. First, let me say that I have a lot of appreciation for Oscar as a director. As a matter of fact, he was the first director to give me a screener for a film, to seek me out and ask me to provide a review and to give my thoughts on his film. That film was none other than Cycles. I had the chance to review that film as well as his follow-up short film, Love with Black Spots. I am always here for the indies, the indie films, the indie filmmakers. I mean, this channel honestly is kind of an indie stand account if you haven't noticed, but you know, it's just something gratifying and rewarding about seeing people go through the process of filmmaking and bringing their stories and their visions and just the things that they really have, the stories that they have inside, bringing that to the big screen and putting it forth for other people to enjoy. That's something I obviously champion, and it's something that I've grown to really appreciate as I've continued to go on, and it's also made space for other directors, to contact me as well. So it's something that I will always be grateful to Oscar for, and I'm just very grateful, even outside of this. I'm just glad to see another director continuing to make their mark, continuing to grow, and continuing to move forward in their professional journey as a filmmaker. And speaking of growth, thinking of Cycles, thinking of Love with Black Spots, and now this film, wow, there is such progression there, especially with the literal filmmaking itself, like the type of shots we see. We started off with Cycles in a chamber piece. It was a single location. A lot of it was centered with the conversation between these two brothers, and there wasn't a lot of external footage or B-roll footage. We just kind of got this one central location, whereas now we have moved outward and we are on highways, we are on beaches, we are actually in the water. We get water splashing up into the camera. So I, first and foremost, just seeing that progression as well. And believe me, I know that filmmaking is not an easy process. So that in itself, just seeing the work that was put into it, especially by our director of photography, Joshy. I also had the chance to review his directorial debut, which was Boy in the Corner. So please feel free to check out all those reviews as well. But that, along with the editing that was also done by Joshy, I've just really enjoyed just seeing the world continue to expand cinematically, and the fact that we are just seeing so much more and just capturing so much more of these communities, these characters, these families, and just seeing what it's like. And of course, I'm obviously American, but as someone who loves, to travel and is, has a serious case of wanderlust, it's always something beautiful to be able to see other communities, seeing these towns and seeing these other places, especially in the UK, and seeing that being captured on screen as well. So that was something I really enjoyed. I also think the performances are fairly solid across the board. I will say, though, one of the standout moments to me, acting-wise, and just as a general storytelling perspective, I loved the moment where Ethan accidentally bumps into his father, and they end up having this conversation that he's really not wanting to have. But it becomes a very raw and honest conversation. And for me, not just performance-wise, but like I said, just from the understanding of Ethan, what has shaped Ethan, what has shaped his father, and why their relationship is fractured, that is something that really stood out to me. And I think whenever we got moments like that, that is when the film truly came alive to me. Because it's just, I don't know, it's just something so special. And then, of course, there's something special about seeing that, but it's also something I relate to myself. I always have my personal perspective. But when I saw that scene, it really hit me because it's like, man, what does it mean to really want to atone for the past? Knowing that you cannot change anything, but genuinely acknowledging what went wrong and still wanting to forge a path forward. So for me, that was such a raw and honest moment. And I think more of that I would have loved to see. I also thought some uses of the music that we see, especially given that we see actual instrumentation, we see guitar playing and we see singing, and we see how that music, touches the community. We see how music shapes Ethan as a person. And some of those moments are enjoyable. Some of the songs are enjoyable as well. And I just thought that was something unique, again, storytelling-wise, that has also showed progression and growth. We are now at the point where we're incorporating these other elements stylistically and visually, and it just really does add to the overall experience. And then in addition to that, there were a couple moments that were surprising. Ethan gets a very nasty surprise when he attempts to meet up with his wife at the end of the film, and I genuinely jumped watching that. I was like, oh, all right. That's something else new I haven't seen. So I thought it was really interesting just seeing so many of these new story elements and dynamics incorporated into this film. All right, now I'm going to jump over to the cons. If there are any cons for me, I would simply say that the music, although it is a pro, it is also probably one of the bigger issues of the film. Not the music itself, because I feel like when we hear it in the moment, it's great. Like, you enjoy it, and at the very least, you appreciate it from Ethan's perspective, what it means to be someone who struggles communicating, but knows how to communicate through music, through this gift, through the arts, right? And it's something that centers him and gives him direction, gives him a sense of purpose. But I do think structurally, the film doesn't let the songs breathe. Like, we don't get a lot in between the songs. It's kind of like back to back. And we do get moments in between, but I feel like given the substance that's there, we get a lot of that buried underneath the songs, so to speak. And again, it's not that the songs themselves are just like, oh my gosh, stop. No, it's that we need time to kind of exhale, take a breather, take a minute, and then, get into the next moment and see how this other song comes forth. And I even think the transition scenes, like the scenes where we see Ethan traveling, or we see, going from one place to the next, I think even those scenes have music, but it's also music with vocals incorporated. So I think even there, we don't get an opportunity to really hear a lot of music that is just instrumental and solely instrumental. So I think the fact that there is just so much of that, it doesn't leave as much room for the conversations and the development of Ethan's relationships with other people in his life, including his father and his mother and, his wife and all these other characters. I just think we needed more room for that, and then maybe cut down on the actual musical numbers so we could get a good balance, because I don't think the balance is exactly there. I will also say that I was somewhat frustrated with the ending only because there is a scene where Ethan has to have a very tough conversation with his wife. And I also thought that was a really solid scene as well, because it was dealing with the reality of life. And when it comes to reality, some of the things that we say, some of the things that we express, even when we are tapping into our truth, really getting to the, the truth of things and really like professing, like telling it all, we may not always get the response we expect. Sometimes you go too far, and sometimes people can acknowledge, yes, I appreciate that. But, you know what I'm saying? There's this whole other piece. And to me, it is a more powerful statement to showcase that and to showcase Ethan having to deal with that reality rather than have the moment where things circle back around at the very, very end. I'm not going to spoil what that is, but I was like, we either needed more of a progression there or had more time to get to that point, or just have it to where you see that their lives are very much different after that conversation and it be more of an acknowledgement. Or having his wife maybe have an acknowledgement regarding his music, because he also undergoes a moment of expressing himself through music in a very specific way towards the end. And I just think it could have been something where it was like, okay, where it could be more open-ended, but not in such a finite way. It was almost like, okay, but there's still hope, and I appreciate that. But again, I just think the stronger message was already there in the scene that we got right before that. So I'm going to give Melodrive a C+. I think this was incredibly ambitious. I love seeing the progression and the growth as always. I appreciate, just as a whole, again, independent filmmakers, independent films, Oscar Wenman-Hyde, Joshy Lee. There's some really great elements here, but I will say that with Cycles, we got so much substance that didn't necessarily rely on style. And I don't think this is a style over substance at all, because the substance is definitely there, and we also get some nice style along with it. I just think the counterbalance of the substance and the storytelling and the dialogue that we get here, I just think we needed a better balance of all those elements. However, I will say, though, it was still a pleasant surprise, and it was still enjoyable having the chance to experience this, because like I said, there's film watching, there's reviewing, there's that eye we have as a reviewer, but there's also an appreciation for the art form that is filmmaking and being able to see that. And I'm not just saying that as like but no, I genuinely feel that it's something rewarding to be able to see that, especially with someone who also has given you an opportunity to review their work and taking the good and the bad, right? You open yourself up to criticism, and I appreciate the fact that you are willing to be open in that way. So with that being said, thank you, Oscar. Once again, thank you, Joshy, as well, for asking my thoughts on this, and I hope and trust you continue forward, and I can't wait to see what you guys have coming up next. Melodrive will be released in the US on digital platforms and physical media on the 14th of February, and the UK shortly after, with a TBA on the details. So, once again, this is D, Movieman, signing off, and I'll see you at the movies.